Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 75. Igniting Together. In the palace. Chen Xing laid quietly on the bed. When he was deeply asleep like this, his face seemed younger in it, as if he was a carefree child. Xiang Shu personally carried him into the carriage, and without leaving him for a moment, also carried him back into the Xie Manor in Jiankong. After experiencing such a large battle, Chen Xing seemed to have sunk into a long, sweet sleep, and no matter how hard they tried to call out to him, he would not wake. The energy in his hunpo was badly damaged. Pu Yang personally checked him over, before saying, he needs sleep to recover. When will he wake? Feng Qianzhen's brows hadn't unfurrowed this entire time. Last time he already slept 3 months, and now there are so many things that need his attention. If he keeps sleeping like this, what should we do? The bedroom was filled with people. Xie Dayun had invited her master Zhu Jin over as well, and he specially checked over Chen Xing. It's hard to say. Zhu Jin checked Chen Xing's pulse, but when it came to mana, exorcism and the 307 Po, those were all already out of the area of his medical expertise, and he could only tell Xiang Shu to look after Chen Xing well. Pu Yang handed an old, yellowing tome to Xiang Shu, saying, here are all the records on hunpo that were passed down in my sect, you can take a look. The rest of them dispersed, leaving only Xiang Shu and Xiao Shan sitting beside the bed. Xiang Shu lowered his head to flip through the book, but anxious beyond compare, he looked up again towards Chen Xing. I up at her entering one's life, Xiang Shu said quietly, is that true? Chen Xing didn't respond, he just kept sleeping quietly. Xiao Shan asked, what is that? Xiang Shu shook his head, sitting down cross-legged to one side as he pulled out the Dinghai pearl, silently observing it. Xiao Shan climbed onto the bed, kneeling on the side, feeling Chen Xing's forehead as he asked, he'll get better, right? Xiang Shu's heart and mind were troubled, and he let out an extremely exhausted sigh. Clearly, he was restraining his anger and didn't want to say anything more. After a moment, he swept out of the room with a gust of wind, and with an angry roar, the Akala blade in hand, he swung that great sword through the air of the courtyard, as if he was trying to express the anger he had suppressed in his heart. Xiao Shan obviously didn't understand very well. Chen Xing had woken up last time, so naturally this time he would too. Xiang Shu's reaction was very clearly outside that of mere worry. That set of sword forms, Xiang Shu practiced from the early morning all the way until noon, and finally, he came in, drenched in sweat and lay down on the ground like a starfish. His eyes stared emptily at the ceiling as he panted for breath. After noon, Xiao Shan came by and saw that Xiang Shu still hadn't eaten, instead just spreading open the ancient tome that Pu Yang had given him, poring over it carefully. It was a book that recorded the resonance of mana and the cooperation between the exorcists and their protectors of ancient times. Back then, with the silence of all magic and the dissolution of the exorcist department, Pu Yang's sect founder had transcribed many of the ancient tomes, and although many magics were unable to be used anymore due to the silence of all magic, their uses and the theories regarding them were all recorded down in detail. For example, for the protector and their exorcist, if the 307 Po were severely damaged due to overuse of mana, aside from special medicines, there were also other methods to ignite the mana together to increase the speed at which the Hun Po repaired themselves. As Xiang Shu kept reading, his gaze suddenly stopped on one of the pages, before he whipped his head to look at Chen Xing sleeping on the bed. After reading the few pages before and after it, Xiang Shu put that book that was almost falling apart back on the table, before he got up to take a bath. Within the palace, hot water was prepared every day, and after he finished washing, he went to burn some incense. When he returned he was wrapped in a cotton bathrobe, inside of which he was only wearing a pair of long pants. After he entered the room, he approached the bed on bare feet. At the moment, Xiang Shu was nervous beyond compare. He took a knee next to the bed, revealing his bare, iron-like calf and foot, before reaching a hand onto the bed, covering the back of Chen Xing's hand. "I'll try it," Xiang Shu said to himself. "There isn't much time left." And then he got up and untied the waistband of that bathrobe. Xiao Shan. Xiao Shan had returned, holding the food box that he was bringing to Xiang Shu, staring suspiciously from outside the doorway. "Great Chanyu?" Xiao Shan asked. "Xiang Shu." Xiang Shu was halfway through undoing the knot on his waistband. He hurriedly turned his head, frowning. "You get out!" "Xiao Shan, what are you doing?" "Xiang Shu, what does this have to do with you?" Xiao Shan felt his suspicions reach their peak. He was only 13, and he pretended to understand when he didn't really, but he had seen it once unknowingly that day in the Kuiji governor's manor, so naturally he could guess that this was something similar. However, Xiang Shu didn't want him to see any more, so he turned and sat down on the bed, not saying anything, with the two of them silently staring at each other. "Xiao Shan." The two of them made for a strange deadlock, one big, one small, Xiang Shu sitting, Xiao Shan standing. They faced each other monotonously for almost the time of a stick of incense, before finally Xiao Shan gave up and placed the food box on the table. Xiang Shu latched the door and waited for a while longer, confirming that Xiao Shan was not lurking outside and peeking in. His nervousness had been disrupted by Xiao Shan's antics, and it dissipated like smoke on the wind. He untied his bathrobe, revealing his entire body, before lying down on the bed. He let Chen Xing lie against his own arm before breathing in deeply, recalling that instant when Chen Xing ignited his 307 Po to provide Xiang Shu with mana, and that day in Kuiji, when under his own anxiety, he stole away all of Chen Xing's mana in an instant. But in the instant he laid down to hug Chen Xing, who was deep in his dreams, seemed to sense something, and he unconsciously snuggled into his embrace, leaning up against his scorching hot chest. Chen Xing was only wearing a simple inner robe and shorts, while Xiang Shu's upper half was completely bare. When Chen Xing leaned up against him, Xiang Shu stopped breathing for a moment, only feeling that his blood coursed hot through his entire body, and he felt a little unnaturally dazed. He picked up Chen Xing's hand, placing it on his own waist, before reaching out his own arms to hug him, pulling him entirely into his embrace. In that instant, within Chen Xing's thin body, the heart lamp gave off a weak light. That light circulated within their bodies, and Xiang Shu felt that the heart lamp's mana was similar to spiritual qi, circulating endlessly within his meridians, producing the exact same effect every time he had borrowed mana from Chen Xing. Then Xiang Shu closed his eyes, controlling his spiritual qi, circulating the mana that flowed endlessly into his body in a full loop, before suddenly embracing Chen Xing, burying his head between his shoulders, circulating his energy and sending the energy back into him. For a split second, the heart lamp's light flashed as the intensity increased in the space of a single breath, flowing back into Chen Xing's sea of consciousness. In that dark ocean, Chen Xing bobbed within those waves as his body glowed with the heart lamp's light. An illusion of a shining dragon took form, circling above the surface of the ocean, looking about in all directions. It finally spotted him, and it flew over from the end of the night sky, approaching Chen Xing floating on the surface of the sea, coiling around him, bobbing up and down, but ultimately not touching him. In that darkness, Chen Xing opened his eyes in astonishment. Within those stormy waves, that huge dragon formed from a soul accompanied his body's movement as they bobbed on that ocean's surface, loyally blocking the tempestuous waves from reaching him, but in the end not making contact with his body. That feeling was extremely familiar, just like that night on the boat with Xiang Shu, when they had been completely honest with each other. In that pitch-black darkness, that ship sailed forward, drifting as it passed through lighting that stitched the earth and sky together and wild winds that swirled to form a tornado. But on that ship, one lamp stayed lit eternally. Xiang Shu circulated his spiritual qi multiple times in complete loops. The light of the heart lamp waxed and waned, but every time it got to the peak of its luminosity, it shone brighter and more brilliantly each time. As if the pair of black and white fish of the Taiji were circling endlessly within their bodies, throughout the long night of the silence of all magic, protecting this last light in this human realm. Xiang Shu's freshly showered body gave off the mixed scent of incense and clean skin, and after a few breaths, dense clusters of sweat gathered on his entire body of beautiful muscles. Chen Xing's breaths turned scorching hot, and though he was dreaming, his sweat had already drenched his inner robe, revealing the slim, youthful figure underneath. His eyebrows were deeply knit, as if on that dream ocean, he and Xiang Shu lit up the heart lamp again and again, experiencing an earth-shaking climax that toppled mountains and overturned seas. Finally, the heart lamp's warm light returned to Chen Xing's 307 po. Xiang Shu let out an exhausted sigh, his entire body drenched in sweat. His black pants were already completely soaked, and they stuck against his legs, revealing his beautiful long legs and their well-formed partitions. He wanted to get off the bed to take another bath, but Chen Xing kept holding onto his waist, not letting go. In Chen Xing's sea of consciousness, the dragon that coiled around himself had already disappeared, but the furious surface of the ocean had calmed, reflecting the bright stars in the night sky overhead. In the sky, on the ocean, within that dream, the Milky Way filled the entire sky, and it was as if he was floating in a sea of stars. Chen Xing opened his eyes, drifting along on this ocean's surface, gazing towards the starry vault above him. "It's so beautiful," Chen Xing mumbled. "Hey? Where's the dragon? Where's my dragon? Don't go!" Chen Xing sat up hastily. He was awake, and the sun was shining, the chirping of the birds reaching his ears. "How long did I sleep for this time?" When Chen Xing woke again, he felt that his entire body was about to fall apart. But the one by his side wasn't Xiang Shu, but rather Xiao Shan. Xiao Shan was currently ducking his head, cleaning a dagger. "Not very long," Xiao Shan said. 3 days. "Ah," Chen Xing said. "This time it was only 3 days? How are things?" "Xiang Shu." "Gu Qing, what about Gu Qing?" Xiao Shan said, "She's going to die, just like Lu Ying." Chen Xing immediately got up and rushed out, entering the side hall, only to see Gu Qing lying on the bed, half her body already rotted away. Feng Yunjun was like a stone statue as he sat in a kneeling position, while Xie Dayun had fallen asleep to the side. "You've woken ah?" Feng Yunjun looked back and saw that Chen Xing had come. Chen Xing's legs still felt a little weak. In these past few days, it was still Xiang Shu who had looked after him, but this time Xiang Shu hadn't stayed by his bedside, guarding him without leaving, but rather after feeding him and wiping his body down every day, he had Xiao Shan stand guard as he himself went to go discuss matters with Xian. In the evening, he would return to sleep in the same bed as Chen Xing. "Let me see." Chen Xing sat down by the side of the bed, lifting aside the blankets. Xie Dayun woke up, but neither of them spoke to Feng Yunjun. As expected, as Chen Xing slept, they had already discussed the matter countless times from all perspectives. Whether Gu Qing could be saved by Chen Xing after woke up, this suggestion must have been rejected by Xiang Shu. Or, it would be better to say, they had proven before at Karasha that they couldn't save Lu Ying, so naturally there was no way to save Gu Qing, who had been born an ordinary person. Having been possessed by Wang Zi for multiple months, Gu Qing had suffered from the constant corrosion of resentment, and she was already no different from a living corpse. Finally, it was Xie Dayun who had used medicines to forcefully extend her lifespan, and every day she lay on the bed in unendurable agony. "I have something I want to say to you," Gu Qing said quietly. Chen Xing." Chen Xing grasped her hand, and though he had long since predicted this outcome, his heart was still filled with pain. "I will get rid of Shihai," Chen Xing said quietly. "I promise you this, Gu Qing." In the dream, I saw many things," Gu Qing said in a low voice. "I felt that I had to hold out until you woke up. Telling you might be able to help." The martial god said, "You would wake soon, he was thinking of ways to make you better." Chen Xing was greatly shocked, and his voice shook as he said, "You saw Wang Zi's memories?" "Yes, yes," Gu Qing said brokenly. "And, the Dinghai pearl." These words, so as not to miss the moment Chen Xing woke up, Gu Qing had long since already told Xiang Shu and the others once. All she wanted was for Chen Xing to wake up so that she could repeat her own words to prevent any information from getting lost in transit. "I'll go call the martial god over," Xie Dayun said. Not long after, Xiang Shu and Xian also came. Gu Qing clearly was already on her last moments, and she said brokenly, "Wang Zi, he thinks that, in Luoyang, in the Longmen Mountains, there is a very important place, which has to do with the Dinghai pearl. Only he can't get in, that door has been sealed." "A door?" Chen Xing said. With great effort, Gu Qing shook her head and said, "There was once an exorcist who went into the Longmen Mountains, who finally sealed that door. Wang Zi, he has revived many drought fiends, and they're standing guard outside that door. The Luoyang drought fiends military encampment." Xiang Shu had listened for a long while at the side before finally speaking. Gu Qing closed her eyes, before saying slowly, "In a place, he found the intersection of the earth veins, he wants Qin and Jin to clash there. I saw a river, by its side was an overgrown forest, and on the river was a wooden bridge." "The Fei River," Xian said. Gu Qing said quietly, "I don't know, over there, he wanted to make a sacrificial altar, to offer up a thing." Xian said, "We've already investigated the underground of the Fei River, but unfortunately we found nothing." Chen Xing gestured to Xian. "Was it a heart?" Chen Xing asked. Gu Qing barely managed to nod her head. Her face was grey, and with great difficulty she turned her head to look at Chen Xing, an expression of pleading appearing in her eyes. To complete the ceremony of moving souls, he needs to open a big door in the Longmen Mountains. Gu Qing's breathing weakened even as she continued. "The thing inside that door, to him it is something very important, and if, until right before Fujian sends out his troops, he is unable to open it, he will abandon his original plan, and seek a lesser alternative." "And what is that lesser alternative?" Chen Xing asked. "A dragon," Gu Qing said, "can be used as the devil god's body." His thoughts were too jumbled. "A Jiao dragon?" Chen Xing furrowed his brows, thinking in his heart that if it was like this, then thankfully they threw the consequences to the wind back then and got rid of that Jiao dragon. Gu Qing, he still has other methods, there are still other people, new people to pick from. It's a tall man, an emperor, he must, no matter what, he must be stopped." "Fujian," Xiang Shu said. "If he can't get the heart lamp and use the Dinghai pearl as the vessel for the devil god's reincarnation, then he'll settle for what he has. He'll use the Jiao dragon, and if that also doesn't work, then he'll change it to Fujian." Chen Xing tightly grasped Gu Qing's hand. Gu Qing said, "I saw his memories, I saw him, being torn into pieces, buried under the ground, his 307 po, struggling endlessly, for hundreds of years, thousands of years, suffering in the dark, without the light of day. I also saw he liked a girl, a very, very long time ago. Every person suffers, but why is it that even death does not grant release?" Gu Qing said quietly, "He was once an ordinary person." "Let them be alone for a bit," Xiang Shu said. "In these few days, she only told us these things." With that, Xiao Shan, Xian, Chen Xing, Xie Dayun, and Xiang Shu left the bedroom, standing in the imperial gardens outside the door. Chen Xing was so affected that his mind was in a daze until Xiang Shu handed him the Dinghai pearl. Wordlessly, he took that artifact. "So we do have to go to Luoyang," Chen Xing said. Everyone remained silent. Chen Xing looked around at the gathered individuals, before boosting up his spirits and smiling. Before, we wasted a lot of time, but it's all right, at least now we have a clue. Xie Dayun said, this clue we obtained in exchange for Qing's life. The price we paid was too high. Chen Xing once again came to the realization that the reality of things was just like this, and he couldn't smile anymore. Xian said, His Majesty was very grateful that you all could get rid of that monster, thus defending his great Jin's legitimacy and the will of the heavens. Following that, he's willing to send out a group of diplomatic envoys to cover your movements and investigations. Protector, what do you think? Chen Xing asked Xiangshu. Xiangshu didn't say a single thing. Chen Xing thought of the heavy words he had spoken to Xiangshu that day, and the blow he had landed afterwards. Swinging fists was one thing, and he believed that Xiangshu wouldn't be angry because of this, but would rather have sobered up from that. The thing that hurt him the most was that sentence, then you can go. Xiangshu n-ed. Sorry, Chen Xing said to Xiangshu. What are you sorry for? Xiangshu asked mildly. You don't need to apologize to anyone, you were always doing what you felt was right. Rather, it was me who forgot the reason you came to find me in the first place. Chen Xing wanted to explain to Xiangshu, but Xiangshu wasn't willing to hear any more of what Chen Xing had to say, and he turned instead to Xian and raised his eyebrows. Xian nodded and said, In these few days, His Majesty has already made the preparations for all of you. It was only because of Gu Qing's circumstances, and that you, Shidi, were in bed comatose, that I thought you all would have to eventually. The door opened, and without a word Feng Qunjun came out. The evil energy between his brows was even more obvious. He didn't cry, he only said lightly, She's gone. Then prepare to set off, Xiangshu said in a deep voice. Everyone has too many new and old grudges, and we need to find Wangzi to settle them. And saying this he turned and left. The next day, the Gu family held a funeral procession for Gu Qing, and the great Jin sent out the envoy squad, a line of people on horseback coming to a stop in front of Mount Zhong, watching the procession from afar. The marsh orchids spread over the path, and the road is gradually changing. Feng Qunjun sang within that spring breeze. Onwards, the waters of the river flow, while above them grow maples, Chen Xing sang quietly. The gaze travels thousands of li, and the heart breaks with sorrow. Feng Qunjun kicked his horse into motion, and with his steed at the front, left Mount Zhong. May the souls of the deceased return, and mourn Jiangnan. From afar came the song, as the clouds roiled over the great lands of the north. The time left until the moment of destiny in Chen Xing's life was 1 year and 9 months. He did not know what awaited ahead of him on this path. But there was a swell of premonition in his heart, as if from the beginning until now, due to his stubborn persistence, the will of the heavens still stood on his side as it always had. Volume 3 Akala Blade End. Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 76. Heading north. It was early spring, and the roads that led to Luoyang were still covered with snow and ice. When the cold spells in later spring came, they would be out in the open country where it was much colder than Jiankong, and the cold would be much harder to bear. Choosing this time to go north was not a good idea, but Sima Yao had reminded them that they had no more time. Everywhere the snow was melting, and the chill of spring was slowing the plans of the Jin. They moved in starts and stops, as there were also several literary officials with them, and Xiangshu and the others had no way to leave the diplomatic envoys behind like that time in Siwai where they were hurrying along. Amongst the envoys, there was even one who couldn't lift a single finger to help, and his sole ability was to slip his enemies sleeping drugs, Xian. But why did this lofty minister of a country want to go with the exorcists to Luoyang? Xian and several literary officials were sitting by the side of the road warming themselves by the fire, while Xiangshu and Feng Qunjun sat silently in front of it, staring into space. Feng Qunjun's expression was gloomy. Experiencing the blows of having both Princess Qinghe and Gu Qing die in the span of 2 short years had greatly affected his life. Fate seemed to be filled with ill will towards him, and he had been cruelly deprived of even this last hope in his miserable existence. However chilly the cold snaps of the Central Plains get, they still won't be able to compare to those of Siwai, Xian said. To the great Chanyu, this must be nothing. Xiang Shu didn't correct Xian's form of address, but said calmly, actually, Gle Chuan's winters aren't colder than those of the Central Plains. First, due to the fact that the Yin Mountains block the wind, and second, where there are a lot of people, there are also a lot of cows and sheep, not like the area to the north of the Yangtze River. As far as the eye could see, the region between Jiankong and Luoyang was filled with almost 100-li-long stretches of deserted landscape with no trace of human habitation, filled with a desolate chill. The diplomatic envoy group that the Jin had sent out, aside from Xian, had another powerful member, a martial official named Huan Yi. He was the nephew of General Huan Xian of Zhenese, and he was Sima Zhao's Jianwei commander of his guard. Huan Yi didn't speak or smile, choosing merely to stare at Xiang Shu quietly. They were like 2 statues, and there was only Xian on this journey who didn't have any troubles weighing him down, and he did his best to keep the atmosphere lively as he said to Huan Yi, in the coming days, if we have a chance, you should go properly have fun in Siwai. Huan Yi let out an indifferent woo. Xian added, when the great Chanyu meets Murong Chong, do you have any handle on how to persuade him? No, Xiang Shu responded easily. I'll do what you all do, when there's an opportunity, I'll act. The Jin envoy group in reality had already made another set of preparations. Or it would be more accurate to say that Xian and Huan Yi had undertaken the greatest responsibility of the Han regime to the south of the Yangtze. The goal of this Jin envoy group's journey was very complex. On the surface, their goal was to initiate peace talks with the Great Qing that Fujian represented and postpone the threat of troops invading Shao County, but in secret they hoped to reach a deal with Murong Chong, inciting internal conflict amongst the Xianbei people and the Di people in the north. And the second layer below that was to provide support for Chen Xing as the exorcist to completely get rid of Wang Zi. They also brought Sima Wei out with them, locking him up in a horse cart made out of steel. Chen Xing couldn't describe why he would come to this decision, but he always felt that when they arrived at Luoyang, perhaps Sima Wei would be of use. After all, he was the only person who had seen Chu's heart with his own 2 eyes. Xian sat in front of the fire, turning his head to look not too far in the distance, saying, where is little Tiankishidi? I'll go take a look. You guys keep discussing things and get a little closer with each other. Xiang Shu, Feng Qunjun, Huan Yi. Along the way, during periods of rest, Xian would take things into his own hands and go find Chen Xing, but Huan Yi, Feng Qunjun and Xiang Shu would just sit like this, as if they were 3 chunks of wood, none of them saying anything to each other. Xiang Shu was currently feeling gloomy, while Feng Qunjun had just lost his loved one, so he didn't want to say anything. Huan Yi didn't want to have overly many connections with the exorcists at all, and so the area by the fire was filled with silence. Chen Xing had found a mass grave directly to the north of this unnamed village, and the pit was filled with bleached white bones that had been gnawed on by wild animals. In the beginning, the Jin army and the Qin army had fought a battle here, and the Xianbei people had captured over 100 of the people in the village, with the original intention of burying them alive. However, they hadn't expected the Jin army to arrive, so the Xianbei people could only use their blades and slaughter all of the people instead, before pushing them into the pit and calling it done. And afterwards the Jin army rushed over, but they had no way to save them. The war situation was critical, and there was no time for them to put away their swords and deal with the innocent victims, so they went north to confront the Xianbei people in a long, drawn-out stalemate. Until the last moments of this nameless village's deceased, the help they had waited for had never arrived, so when they died, their hearts must have been filled with despair. In the pit an ample amount of resentment had collected. Chen Xing and Xiao Shan came to stand in front of the pit, testing out using resentment to power Kangsheng Yuli's keen edge that could break through everything to open up that Dinghai pearl in his hand. Try it. Chen Xing only felt that his body was stuck in the midst of resentful energy and was extremely uncomfortable, but under these unusual circumstances, they could only use this kind of method. Xiao Shan bowed his body, his two hands with claws crossed in front of him, collecting the resentment in the pit. Chen Xing lifted his right hand to the side, the light of the heart lamp shining from his palm. If Xiao Shan was infected by the resentment, he could at any point exorcise it. Right after, Xiao Shan's eyes flashed with a bloody light. Here dash! Kangsheng Yuli swung out, suddenly exploding outwards. Xian had just arrived, and he couldn't help but be extremely startled as he shouted, "Be careful ah!" Two streaks of invincible claw light shot out in a cross, but with a clang they were blocked by the Dinghai pearl. Behind it, more than half of the mass grave had collapsed in on itself, and stray rocks rolled down the slope. The Dinghai pearl that had been placed by the side of the pit was wholly unaffected. Chen Xing's experiment had once again failed. 1K later, everyone gathered in front of the fire, looking at this dragon pearl. Kangsheng Yuli is made from dragon claws, Xiang Shu said in an unconcerned manner. The Dinghai pearl is a dragon pearl, you said so yourself before. Chen Xing frowned. Then, right now, we've walked right into a dead end. We've gotten the Dinghai pearl, yet there is no way we can break it. Huan Yi had heard the general series of events, and he took the Dinghai pearl, studying it from all directions for a while before handing it to Xian, saying, "Inside this thing is really the spiritual qi of the entire world." They only saw the pearl looking plain and unnoticeable, bland and grey, appearing nothing like any sort of artifact. Xian answered, "It must be, we went through so many hardships to find it." Feng Yunjun finally opened his mouth, asking, "Is there anything that is the natural enemy of dragons? Have you guys thought about it from this angle yet?" Chen Xing answered, matter-of-factly, dragons don't have natural enemies. Xiang Shu thought deeply for a moment, before suddenly saying, "Are there any other methods?" Chen Xing said, "What methods?" But it was as if Xiang Shu himself hadn't understood it, and he shook his head. Xian sat for a little while longer, drinking his tea, before he said, "Let's continue on the journey ba, if we travel fast today, we might be able to arrive at Shao County before nightfall." The envoy group presently got up and continued onwards, following along the military path that was filled with the remnants of the battle. When the sky grew fully dark, they had arrived at the northeastern side of Shao County. Black clouds covered the moon, and in this pitch-black darkness, the path curved around many mountains, and it was difficult to traverse. The line of people held up their torches, almost getting lost several times, before finally Xiang Shu said, "Come with me, I know that there's a disused village here." "How do you know that?" Chen Xing said suspiciously. Xiang Shu didn't respond. He led the group around a small hill, and as expected, they arrived at a village that had fallen into disrepair. This place was still within the Jin country territory, but one day more to the north, and they would enter the realm of the Qin people. It had been like this for many years now. The two countries of Qin and Jin had had many small-scale conflicts, so the residents in the northern parts of Shao County had long since completely left the area. The group, headed by Xian, settled down for a temporary rest. After dinner Chen Xing went to search everywhere, but he didn't see Xiang Shu, so he could only go back into the room and lie down. In the dark, dilapidated bedroom, Feng Yunjun's voice came from the bed. "You got in the wrong bed," Feng Yunjun said in the darkness. "I didn't," Chen Xing said good-naturedly. "I'm accompanying you to sleep for a little bit." And saying this, he laid down on the bed fully clothed, and Feng Yunjun scooted over a little towards the inside, as a light sigh came to Chen Xing's ears. After all, they both understood the matter at hand but weren't willing to speak it out loud. Chen Xing was afraid that Feng Yunjun would fall into despair because of Gu Qing's death, and Feng Yunjun was very clear that along this journey Chen Xing had been constantly watching over him. But it was just that in front of many people, there were some words that were not easy to say. The heart lamp shone from Chen Xing's palm as he gently pressed it against the back of Feng Yunjun's hand, saying quietly, "Feng Dage, you're all right ba." Feng Yunjun was silent for a long while, before pulling his hand away, answering in a small voice, "Don't use your mana, otherwise Xiang Xiangdi is going to get mad at you again." "What are you thinking about?" Chen Xing asked. "Are you thinking about Gu Qing?" Feng Yunjun shook his head and answered, "Remember when we first met in my city and became companions on our way to Chang'an?" Chen Xing fell into reminiscing. 2 years ago, on that journey they had also searched everywhere for disused villages that had been destroyed by the fires of war to rest in, so this felt a bit familiar to them. Time passed so quickly. Dage began to practice martial arts the year he turned 8, Feng Yunjun answered. "I became a disciple under teacher Lu Jing's instruction. Learning how to use the saber was to protect Sen Luo Wangxiang, protect the Feng family, protect those who needed me to protect them." Chen Xing thought about it, before saying, "Lu Jing." He was not very familiar with the various names of the martial artists in the Central Plains. Feng Yunjun nodded and said, "A master of the blade, but now he's already gone to Dongying." To tell you the truth, Dage's innate talent has always been low, and it took me 14 years of training for me to be considered as having finished my apprenticeship. Chen Xing said self-deprecatingly, "Your martial skills are this strong, and you're still considered to be lacking innate talent." Feng Yunjun smiled bitterly. "Compared to Xiang Xiangdi, I must confess, there are huge differences between people. Anyways, it's not important. 2 years ago, before I met you, it was just when Dage had finished his training, and I was filled with aspirations as I went to Chang'an. Xiang Shu's martial skills can't be described with regular logic. In the whole world there is only one him," Chen Xing said. "Now I feel, more and more so, that the heart lamp directed me to find him for a reason. You two are pretty well matched. When I think about that period of time when we journeyed to Chang'an together," Feng Yunjun murmured. "We feared neither heaven nor earth, it was such a good time. Who knew that in the blink of an eye, everything would have disappeared, and it came to an end so quickly, leaving behind not even one whit for me. I thought that upon returning to Jiangnan, everything would be able to start anew, but I never thought that even Qing would leave just like this." Outside of the dilapidated house, the dark clouds dissipated, revealing a clear night sky and a rounded bright moon, its silver light shining over the land. Chen Xing murmured, "Sometimes I can't help but think, if those people who died could come back to life, how nice that would be. Dad, Mom, Shifu, King Akele." Xiang Shu also said that sometimes he wishes that this banquet would never end, but it has already ended, so what can we do? Feng Yunjun interrupted him. "These thoughts of yours are very dangerous, little Tianqi." Perhaps it was exactly because of those same thoughts that Wang Zi was infected by resentment. Chen Xing sucked in a breath. Sometimes he couldn't help but admit, he saw his own life and death as very light, but the death of others weighed heavily on him. Giving up his own life willingly, that was something that he had no choice on, but in the end, he only hoped that everyone else would be well and live happily. If he died and the others were also notable to escape this disaster, he would have regrets in his heart. And so in essence, at the bottom of it, Chen Xing felt that he himself was not a person who took matters lightly. Feng Yunjun said, "Iupiter has entered your life, right? You're the only lamp in the human realm, their only hope of turning bad luck into good fortune, and Dage feels more and more now that, truly, there are many things that only you can do." Just as Chen Xing was about to explain, Feng Yunjun continued. "But I always felt that, perhaps there was also some lone star that entered my life, and perhaps that also determined my fate, that for my entire life, I would be all alone in the world. King He, Gu Qing, my brother, if I hadn't come to their sides, would they not have died?" Chen Xing said, "How can you say this? Feng Dage, none of this is your fault." Chen Xing sat up, watching Feng Qianjun as he said, I originally also blamed the misfortunes of many people on myself, but Xiang Shu told me that life and death are things that cannot be avoided. You must understand that no matter if you are there or not. All right. Feng Qianjun began to smile, and he reached a hand out to pinch Chen Xing's face as he sighed, You've lain here for less than 1k, and I've already heard you bring up Xiang Shu quite a few times. Go see him ba. Chen Xing said, Why would I care about where he is? Just as he was about to lay down, Feng Qianjun nudged him again, saying, Dage is all right, I'm able to find my way out. You go ba, go, don't make me take another beating tomorrow. Chen Xing could only get up and leave the dilapidated house, coming to the side of the small creek. He saw that Xiang Shu was standing in front of the waterfall on the slope, washing something. It's the 15th day of the first month. Chen Xing stopped behind Xiang Shu, lifting his head to look towards the sky. The dark clouds had dissipated, and the round moon was like a jade platter, shining brightly over the land. Looking down from the slope, on the desolate plains north of the Yangtze River, resentment could already be faintly seen, currently sending out bursts of black energy from the surface of the earth towards the sky. The further north we go, the more dense the resentment is, Chen Xing said. You can also see it. Xiang Shu turned his head to look down at the land at the foot of the mountain, saying, I thought that only I could see it. Chen Xing said, Among the mortals now, there are only the two of us who have mana who can see the changes within the mountains and the rivers. Mortals, saints, Xiang Shu said, the outside mountains and rivers, the inside mountains and rivers. Xiang Shu suddenly let out a sigh, stowing away that thing he was washing under the waterfall. Chen Xing sat on the rock, shoulder to shoulder with Xiang Shu, watching the creek water as he asked, What did you want to say during the day? Nothing, Xiang Shu said easily. Chen Xing said, You must have had many things you wanted to say. Xiang Shu answered, Even if I said it, you wouldn't pay attention to it. Chen Xing said a little helplessly, How would I not mind? As long as it's related to the Dinghai pearl, as long as you say it. Xiang Shu responded, Then what if it's unrelated? Chen Xing couldn't help but say, I remember that there was one night where the moon was also like this. The 15th day of the second month 2 years ago. Xiang Shu watched the foot of the mountain as he said absent-mindedly, That was when we two first met. You had me become your protector, and you were rejected by me. Chen Xing said, Why do I always feel that, even though we've known each other for 2 years, after this long, you're still the same as you were before, you haven't changed at all. Sometimes you're even worse than you were when we first met. Xiang Shu replied, I've said many things more than once now. You just haven't understood, or it would be better to say, you pretend that you haven't understood. Chen Xing. Chen Xing turned his head to look at Xiang Shu, but Xiang Shu didn't look at him, avoiding his gaze. What did I pretend to not understand? Chen Xing asked, confused. Nothing. If I knew that you were going to use this kind of method to defeat Shihai, Xiang Shu said to himself, then I wouldn't have left Li Chuan to chase you down south. Chen Xing shot back, then I would only die even faster. After being brought back by Sima Wei, at this point in time I would have already become Chu's vessel. Xiang Shu answered, You have the protection of Iupiter, your luck has always been good. Chen Xing, you clearly don't think of it that way. Xiang Shu suddenly spoke. If you want to break the Dinghai pearl, I have another way. Chen Xing's train of thought was derailed by Xiang Shu's sentence, and he immediately said, What way? I knew that you had an idea. Return it to Wang Zi, Xiang Shu said. Let the resentment pollute it. You've gone insane. Chen Xing said. We finally got it after so much difficulty, how could we do that? Xiang Shu, Wang Zi wants to sculpt the Dinghai pearl into Chu's new vessel, so he is bound to use resentment to refine it. When we fight the final battle, we'll pour the heart lamp into the Akala blade, letting me use all of the power, borrowing the exorcising effect of the heart lamp to deliver a shattering blow to the Dinghai pearl. Chen Xing. Xiang Shu's words elicited another scene in Chen Xing's mind. Zuyan was the dragon that had already existed when the sky and the earth split, and on this earth there were no more artifacts that could break the dragon pearl it had left behind. But if they used resentment to refine it, once the Dinghai pearl became a resentful artifact, then the combined power of the Akala blade and the heart lamp could deal it a merciless blow. Borrowing the suppressing power that the heart lamp had towards devils, was the only way to destroy it. This is too risky, Chen Xing mumbled. Too crazy. Xiang Shu raised his eyebrows and made a hand gesture, meaning, I knew you wouldn't accept this plan. Chen Xing got up and paced for a few steps at the side, before saying, but this is wholly possible. Actually, along the journey I was constantly suspecting why Wang Zi was so invested in that door in the Longmen Mountains. Xiang Shu, N. Chen Xing said, maybe over there is the sacrificial altar where your mother and Zhang Lu wanted to return to, 3,000 years earlier, to cast their spell. Xiang Shu, maybe. Chen Xing, I guess that Wang Zi also doesn't know how to use the Dinghai pearl, and perhaps he has never actually gotten it in his grasp and had a good look at it. This plan is far too wild, but it can work. If we return the Dinghai pearl to him, I'm guessing that he'll use resentment to refine it. It will take some time to do so, and in that time, he won't be able to split his attention, and that gives us more opportunities, so the best time would be the instant when Chu begins to transfer his souls to the Dinghai pearl. Xiang Shu, but to let me use the Akala blade to completely shatter the Dinghai pearl, you will inevitably. No worries, Chen Xing mumbled. I will burn the heart lamp to its maximum power to cooperate with you. Xiang Shu turned his head to shoot a look at Chen Xing, saying, at that time, maybe you won't survive past that. Chen Xing nodded and said, yes. Chen Xing naturally knew what the meaning behind Xiang Shu's words implied. After Wang Zi used resentment to refine the Dinghai pearl, at the earliest chance they found, they would meld together his own 307 Po and the Akala blade, breaking the Dinghai pearl. Chu would still be in the midst of transferring souls when he would be destroyed by Xiang Shu, and with the explosion of the Dinghai pearl, all of the spiritual qi of the heavens and earth would be released, returning back to the human realm. At that time, resentment would become less important, as the abundant spiritual qi in the environment would naturally begin to purify the resentment, entering into a wholly new cycle. I can do it, only, how will we let Wang Zi not become alert to our plans and give the Dinghai pearl back into his hands? Chen Xing furrowed his brows. Even a little carelessness will arouse his suspicion. Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu didn't wait for Chen Xing to finish, rising and walking away. Chen Xing stared dumbly at Xiang Shu's back profile, letting out another sigh, before he suddenly remembered Xiang Shu's sentence. What did I pretend to not understand? Chen Xing asked himself. End chapter.